11:47 p.m. The lights are off, but the room is still glowing blue light on your face, crumbs somewhere in the sheets, yesterday's clothes still on your body. You tell yourself this is rest. It isn't. In Japan, the bed isn't just where sleep happens, it's treated like a small sacred room inside your room, and almost everything about how the West uses it would be quietly unthinkable there, not because of manners, because of what it does to your nervous system. Here are 7 ordinary bedtime habits Japan would never forgive, and the quiet discipline that replaces each one. 1. Eating in bed, picture the tray balanced on your knees, toast crumbs migrating into the sheet folds, a coffee ring drying on the nightstand. The faint smell of last night's takeout still hanging in the fabric by morning. It feels harmless. Cozy, even. The Japanese have a name for what's missing from that scene. Kekkai, originally the invisible line separating a shrine from the ordinary world outside it, a sacred boundary nothing was allowed to casually cross. Every space in the home carries its own Kekkai. The kitchen is for eating. The bed is for sleeping. Nothing more crosses that line. The Western habit of turning the bed into a dining table, a desk, a snack station, quietly erodes that boundary until the bed no longer means rest, your body stops recognizing it as a signal. That's why you can lie there for an hour, exhausted, and still feel wired. What it asks of you is almost nothing. Nothing edible crosses the threshold of the bedroom door. Finish the meal at the table, wipe the crumbs, carry only your body clean and empty-handed into the room where you sleep. Within a week, something shifts. The bed starts to feel different under you, sacred in a small way, because it has only ever meant one thing. And once your body trusts that boundary, it stops negotiating with you at bedtime, it simply finally lets go. But eating isn't the only thing leaking into that sacred boundary every night. 2. Scrolling right up until your eyes close the scene is familiar enough to be almost universal, thumb moving, eyes glassy, one video sliding into the next until you're not even absorbing anything anymore. Just feeding a hunger that never says enough. There's a Japanese concept for what's missing here, the meaningful pause, the empty space between 2 notes that makes the music mean something. Traditional Japanese design is full of the gap between objects in a room, the silence between words in conversation, the stillness before sleep, the blank wall left deliberately bare, the pause held just a beat before a bow. Isn't emptiness for its own sake. It's what gives everything else its shape. A Western night rarely has any left in it. Every last minute is filled, right up until the eyes physically can't stay open, so the mind never gets the pause it needs to downshift. Sleep doesn't arrive gently. It arrives like a switch being flipped, and the body never quite believes it's safe. The practice is simple, though rarely easy. Choose a hard stop 30 minutes before you intend to sleep, and let that final half hour be empty on purpose. No screen, no scroll, no noise. Just the room, dim and quiet, doing nothing in particular. That silence isn't wasted time, it's the your body has been missing all along. And once the scrolling stops, the next habit worth noticing is what your bed looks like the moment you leave it in the morning. 3. Leaving the bed unmade all day, walk back into your bedroom at 6 p.m. and the bed still looks exactly like you left its sheets twisted, pillow dented, the whole shape of last night's sleep still sitting there, waiting. Most people don't think twice about it. The Japanese solved this with a small daily ritual, Shimau literally, to put something away, to return it to its proper place until it's needed again. Traditional futons are the clearest example. Every morning, they're folded and stored in the closet, and the room transforms, bedroom becomes living space, blank and ready for the day. Nothing lingers out of place. An unmade Western bed does the opposite. It leaves the evidence of rest sitting out in the open all day, which sounds trivial until you notice what it does psychologically. It blurs the line between the version of you that's resting and the version that's living, so neither one ever feels complete. You half live in a room that still looks like you're asleep in it. The practice of Shimau doesn't require a futon or a closet. It just requires 90 seconds, sheets pulled taut, pillows squared, the room visually finished before you leave it. That act tells your brain the night is officially over and, just as importantly, it tells your brain something is coming back to later in order. A made bed isn't about appearances. It's a small, daily closing ritual which matters more once you realise how many other closing rituals get skipped entirely. 4. Wearing your day clothes to bed, it's been a long day, and by 10 p.m. the idea of changing clothes feels like one task too many, so you lie down still in the jeans, the bra, the hoodie that's been on since 7 a.m. Telling yourself you'll change in a minute. The minute never comes. Kejime, the deliberate marking of a transition, the clear line drawn between one state and the next. A small ceremony. A boundary drawn on purpose. Changing into sleepwear isn't a chore in Japanese daily life. It's exactly that, a Kejime moment, a small ritual that tells the body the day is over now, a different mode is beginning. Skip it, and the line blurs. Your body stays half-dressed for daytime, half-braced for it, even while you're technically resting. That's why sleeping in day clothes so often produces a strange, shallow kind of sleep, technically unconscious, never quite restored. The fix is almost embarrassingly simple, and that's exactly the point. Change your clothes every night, no matter how tired you are. It takes under a minute less time than scrolling past a single reel. But that minute is the Kejime, the ritual handoff from the person who worked, commuted and answered messages all day to the person who is allowed, finally, to stop. Once your body learns that cue, it stops negotiating over just 5 more minutes and starts winding down on schedule instead. Clothing sorted, but the space right beside your pillow tells its own story. 2-5, letting the nightstand become a junk drawer. Look at the surface, closest to your pillow chargers knotted together, an old receipt, 3 lip balms, a book you haven't opened in months, a glass with water gone stale. It's the first thing your eyes land on at night and the last thing they see in the morning. And most people never once question what it's doing there. Does this object actually earn a place within arm's reach of your sleeping body? That's the exact question behind Danshari, a Japanese philosophy, blending 3 ideas: refusing what you don't need, discarding what's excess, and separating yourself from attachment to things. For most of what accumulates on a nightstand, the honest answer is no. A cluttered nightstand isn't just visual noise, it's the last thing your brain processes before sleep and the first thing it processes on waking, which means it sets the emotional tone for both. A wall of half-finished tasks and forgotten objects tells your body there's more to manage before you can rest. The Japanese approach keeps it brutally simple: a lamp, a glass of water, maybe 1 book. Nothing else earns that small square of real estate. Nothing else has earned it, if you're honest. Clear it once, properly, and resist refilling it out of habit. What's left isn't emptiness, it's a small, deliberate frame around the last thing you see before you close your eyes. Once that surface is calm, there's one more thing worth questioning: the very light that fills the room. 6. Sleeping under harsh, bright light until the last second the overhead light stays on, white and flat and clinical, until the very moment you decide to sleep, and then it's off, all at once, plunging the room from stadium bright to pitch black with nothing in between. The Japanese writer Junichiro Tanizaki spent an entire essay, Ine Raisan in Praise of Shadows, arguing for the opposite: a reverence for dim, low, amber light, for the beauty found in shadow rather than in illumination. Traditional Japanese homes were built around this instinct, using paper screens and low lanterns to soften every edge of light in the evening. There's a biological reason this matters beyond aesthetics. Bright, blue-toned light in the hour before bed tells your brain it's still daytime, suppressing the melatonin your body needs to wind down, no matter how tired you feel. The harsh light, then blackout habit, essentially asks your nervous system to go from noon to midnight in 0 seconds, and it rarely complies gracefully. The Japanese approach eases into darkness instead of falling into it. An hour before bed, switch off the overhead light for good and let a single warm, low lamp take over, something closer to candlelight than daylight. Let the room dim in stages, not all at once. Your eyes adjust, your melatonin rises on schedule, and by the time you actually lie down, your body has already been rehearsing sleep for the last hour. Light sets the stage, but what you're thinking about when you finally lie down matters just as much. 7. Carrying the day's stress straight into bed, replaying the fight. Rehearsing the email you shouldn't have sent, the one still sitting in your stomach. You lie down still mid-argument with someone who isn't even in the room. Heart rate climbing instead of falling, mind refusing to let the day end even though your body clearly needs it to. Kirikae, literally switching over, the deliberate act of changing mental gears from one mode to another, is the skill missing from that moment. It's a skill practiced constantly in Japanese work culture, leaving stress at the office door. Bowing out of one context before entering the next, and it applies just as directly to the space between your day and your sleep. Most Western nights have no Kirikae moment at all. The day simply stops, and whatever emotional residue is left over gets carried, unfiltered, straight into bed. That's why so many people report lying awake, replaying conversations they can't fix at 1 a.m. There was never a transition, so the mind never got permission to close that file. Practicing Kirikae doesn't require meditation training. It can be 3 slow breaths at the doorway of your bedroom, or a single sentence spoken to yourself that's enough for today, treated as a genuine instruction rather than a platitude. Some people write one unfinished thought on paper and physically close the notebook, an external gesture for an internal shift. The point isn't to solve anything. It's to mark, deliberately, that one mode has ended before another begins, which is, in the end, what every habit on this list has been pointing toward all along. None of these 7 habits are really about hygiene or manners or being disgusting at all. They're about boundaries, the quiet lines Japan draws between eating and resting, stimulation and stillness, the day you had and the sleep you need. Western bedrooms tend to blur every one of those lines until the bed stops meaning anything specific and the body stops trusting it. You don't need a futon, a shrine, or a complete life overhaul to fix that. You need one boundary, kept consistently, until your nervous system believes it again. Start with just one from this list tonight, and notice, tomorrow morning, what a room that only ever meant rest actually feels like to wake up in.